would feel like if I could peek into heaven just to see how he's doing. But I bet that he must be laughing the loudest up there, and he probably came in trying to rearrange certain things. I promise that I'll use my life and live it out as gratitude for all the things he's instilled to me. So this is goodbye, because he's gone. But because he's left such a big part of himself in all of us, I know that we'll keep his spirit alive. Yes, I'll cry but a little while, but I'm going to spend hours and hours remembering the times we listened to Mangiovanni, Andrea Bocelli, Miles Davis, just to mention a few. I know that I'll feel his love all the way from the heavens, and I know that I'll always be his princess. One day soon, our scars will heal. Rest in peace, Uncle. Rest in peace, Dad. Rest in peace, our legend.
On each and every paragraph, no general statement.
Thank you very much, Vivian. I would like to call Mrs. Doris Mabiteha. Uteng of Doris. We are supposed to leave here promptly at 11, so the quicker the better.
Tladimisa Baruti, Familia Selebi, and the protocol observed. Nakena Doris Maboitse Hokotokwan. Kemo mo cheka setlogolo sa Maboitsego sa Kotokwane sa Selebi. Ke tla rata go opela kopelo e reng Eloi Eloi ke kopa le nthuse go e opela. Eloi Eloi lama sabachthani. Eloi Eloi lama sabachthani. Tiko wami tiko wami undishi. Jake wa opela kwa lenko ha ke khone go expressa pila ke tsogile me ke re ke tla bua ka re Uncle Jake ne le moratiwa wa ka ke morata ka pelo ka re moya. When I met Uncle Jake, it was at Orlando East in 1966 at my grandmother's house. He was overweight and admired his energy in doing things, and I learned that he was a boxer, that's the weight. But he defined it with running and jogging around. When they had caucus meetings at home during the 70s, I'll be there right under his nose, looking at him, straight in his eyes. He would then say to me, "Urata ditaba, Doris," and send me away to the shop to buy fish and chips. I'll quickly run and come back to listen again. They will send me again and again to the shops. I remember the day one time he sent me to the shops, and it was lunchtime at Orlando High School. And at that time, there was a boy who was pretending to be helping me to buy for me. And as I was tiny and short, but instead I found myself standing there in the shop until every student was back to the class. And the shop was empty and damn. That is when I realized that I was robbed. I cried all the way going back fearfully because I knew how strict Uncle Jackie was. The way I panicked, I thought he was going to throw me in the drain or shout at me, but because of his loving and caring uncle, he embraced me instead of and assured me of his undying love. He gave me back the money, and I go back to the shop. And I did the same thing that he wanted. He wanted fish and chips, and I bought it, and they were happy to get the fish and chips. He would put me on his lap and tell me stories about Umzabalazo and Umkhonto wesizwe. I will listen very attentively, and in that way, that's why I connected with him, because he was a good storyteller and I was a good listener. If it wasn't because of my parents, I would have been gone and joined him and other comrades. And I'm convinced that I would have been the youngest Umkhonto because I would have been 7 years old at that time. That's how influential he has been. I mean, convincing a 7-year-old child to join a struggle, it was going to be a record. I loved my Uncle Jackie to death. Because of him, I came across comrades like Uncle Billy Masetla, Uncle Nwako, Uncle Jeff Khatebe, and Uncle Super. Among others, those were all the people I admired and I would even massage their knees and feet during that era when they were busy caucusing. In 1990, I stayed in El Dorado Park at Aunt Anne's house with her mom. She embraced, loved, and cherished me. And I thank you very much, Auntie Anne, because of you had an opportunity to know me, and very much because of you, Auntie Anne, I had an opportunity to know and stay with your mom, who had also contributed in sharing my life to be his wonderful and beautiful young woman standing here today. The last time I saw Uncle Jackie was on the 16th of January 2015, on Friday. He was so helpless but peaceful. He was just responding using his eyes filled with tears. I could see that he was in pain. And on the 23rd of January 2015, I received a call from Comrade Manala Manzin that my uncle, Uncle Jackie, is no more. Hence the reason we are here today, gathered here. He ran his race, he served his purpose. Today I am liberated because of him. Robala ka khotso, tlo, olwako uqatha, olufezile.
Thank you very much, Os Doris. I have to make an appeal to all the comrades to please fill in the seats to the front. Instead of being very sparsely populated, this is a very big church. When we are closer, it also absorbs the echo. I think you can all hear the echo in the background. Please, could you just fill in the seats as you come in? Those who are at the back, please move forward. At this juncture, I would like the Kopano choir to sing one of Jackie's favorites. At the same time, I call Miss begin.Selebi to step to the podium.
Dumelang, Sanbonani, good morning. A tribute to my uncle. When it comes to the compassionate nature of my uncle begin.Selebi, there were no half measures, as he was a man of integrity, pride and determination. He was a pillar of our strength, and we shall all remember him as our leader and as a member of our family. He was a patriot who served his country with great distinction and ultimately achieved wonders in what was previously thought of as a mammoth task. Today we say goodbye to a hero who flew the South African flag high, and may his soul rest in peace. Thank you.
On each and every paragraph.
Hona jwanong sebaka ke sa Dignitary. Please come to the podium. And then Tato, can you be ready, please?
Good morning, everybody, family, friends, ministers, all protocol observed. I'm also here to give tribute to my uncle, begin.Selebi, a great human being, so strong, bold, jovial, a rare, larger-than-life kind of character, a pillar that supported our whole family. Such a huge loss has created a vacuum that one suffocates every time I think of him. Rangwani Tupa, that's what we called him. Inele Rangwani Waruna, Rangwani Tupa. And as Nell said yesterday, he would come. I remember he drove a Mini, those old Minis, and my uncle was big. And I'd always look at him and think, how does he get into this car? And he would bring a lot of coins with him. We saw him very, very few times. And every time he's about to leave, he'll give you the coin and say, go and buy sweets. By the time you come back, he's gone. In life, we loved him dearly, and in death, we do the same. With tears in our eyes, we watched him suffer and saw him fade away, the hard-working hands to rest. God saw him getting tired and put his arms around him and whispered, come with me. Although we loved him dearly, we could not make him stay. The golden heart had stopped beating. You did not go alone. A part of us has went with you. You left beautiful memories. And though we cannot see you, you are always at our side. God broke our hearts to prove that He only takes the best. The family chain has been broken, but as God calls us one by one, the family chain will link again. Till we meet again. Go.
Bahlompehi, baruti, Phuthego, lelapa. Biso la ka ke Dignitary. I only got the call when I was driving on my way here. My father was initially supposed to represent the Selebi family, but he asked me to take his part because he is overcome. Unlike my cousins, I do not have a prepared text, so I'm going to wing it as much as I can. My uncle never stood much on ceremony. He was an enigmatic character. I've agonized over the course of this week how best to remember this man. I remember very shortly after he came from exile, we went to visit him one Sunday, and I was, as much as I thought, dressed to the nines. He looked at me and he said, "Son, that shirt has no future on your body." This was my uncle. He was one of us, he was the best of us. Selebi, we are a very, very proud people. We do no man's bidding. We are a very courageous people, very quiet. It is by this implication that I believe that this man was incorruptible. Motho wa robetseng mona, lelapa la Selebi, re lahlehetswe. But I have made a conscious decision that I will not mourn my uncle. I am going to cherish the moments that we spent together. He was a very, very strange character. He was prone to inexplicable mood swings. He could one moment be the most jovial person you've ever come across, and the next he would be the most intransigent, the quietest, the most silent person you'd ever seen. But in all this, I always knew, very deep in my heart, that he cared for each and every single one of us. He cared for who he was. He was a very proud man. This passing of his is time for the Selebi family to pick up the cudgels, to learn from him. He was true to the last.
In a little candidate, before I call on Aubakwe Makhale, who I am told is going to render an item in tribute to his uncle, I would like to recognize our former president, Kgalema Motlanthe, and his better half. I'd like to recognize Ozanele Mbeki, Minister Dipuo Peters, Minister Aaron Motsoaledi, Minister Edna Molewa, Minister Susan Shabangu, Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, Minister Lindiwe Zulu, Deputy Minister Bapela, my boss, Deputy Minister Tembi Majola, my sister-in-law, Deputy Minister Kele, who you all know. We compete about who looks smarter. Former Speaker of the House, Comrade Maxi Sulu. All these we recognize because we give them tlotlo e ba tshwanetseng, but in all earnestness, they are here primarily because Jacob touched them, each one in his own special way. Aubakwe, are you ready?
Ke rata go dumedisa le nna balosika le ditsala. All protocol observed. Le nna ka mantswe a mmalwanyana. Ke rata gore tshidisegang modimo a lokeletse mo nakong e kutlwa botlhoko a re neye maatla re losika There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar. For the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar. For the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. In the sweet by and by we shall meet on the beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by we shall meet on that beautiful shore. Motsi ore utlulugetse Resere ubona pichana Likhamaranyana salite Ose uhlahile wakhanya munati okwapile reseri takopana bote munati kwapile reseri takopana bote munati kwapile reseri takopana bote munati kwapile reseri takopana bote. For there's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar. For the Father waits over the way to prepare us a dwelling place there. Thank you.
Thank you, Haubakwe. When we were working on the program to pay tribute to Ambassador Selebi, we spent some time saying to ourselves, how do we cover the life of such a giant? He was not just a giant in size, but in his deeds. It was therefore decided that we must craft a program that will capture the life of Jackie Selebi as a teacher, as a youth leader, as a diplomat, and as a commissioner, a fighter for our people who dedicated his all, a teacher who produced so many who today are leaders in their own right. Within South Africa, before he left for exile, and at the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College in Tanzania, the next speaker we are calling to pay tribute is the provincial chairperson of the African National Congress, Comrade Paul Mashatile.
Long live the spirit of Comrade Jackie Selebi. Long live. Long live the spirit of Comrade Jackie Selebi. Long live. All power. All power. Oliver Tambo. Bisandla sa. Oliver Tambo. Bisandla sa. Oliver Tambo. Bisandla sam we tambo ba bisandla Oliver Tambo ba bisandla sam Oliver Tambo ba bisandla sam Oliver Tambo ba bisandla sam we tambo ba bisandla Sibambunga siegele Bisandla sam Oliver Tambo Bisandla sam Oliver Tambo Bisandla sam we Tambo Sibambunga siegele Bisandla sam Oliver Tambo Batsamaisi ba mosebetsi ha ke se tlhompho ba lapa la Selebi ba lapa la Rhodes Meloko le metswalle ke se tlhompho go Deputy Secretary General of the ANC Comrade Jesse Duarte, former President Halima Motlanthe and Mrs. Motlanthe, ke se tlhompho go Ausanele Mbeki, ke se tlhompho go Isithwalandwe Ruth Mompati, ministers, deputy ministers, leadership of the ANC and the Alliance, commissars and commanders of Umkhonto weSizwe, members of parliament, comrades and compatriots. On behalf of the leadership and membership of the ANC and myself, allow me to express our heartfelt condolences to Aus N, the children, and the rest of the Selebi family for their loss. We say to Baga Selebi, a dipelo tsa lona di se ferekane, gonne Modimo o na le lona. Your loss is our loss. Your pain is our pain. We pray to God that He comforts you and provides you with the strength to cope with your loss. Comrade Jackie was no ordinary cadre of our movement. He was a political giant. He was a warrior and a fearless combatant for our liberation. Hence, the ANC and our country are in mourning as Comrade Jackie represented a generation of selfless, courageous, and committed cadres of our movement who dared to stand up to the fascist and racist regime in pursuit of a dream. Comrade Jackie and his peers dared to dream. They dreamt of a country where no person oppresses the other. They dreamt of South Africa that belongs to all who live in it. A country where the people shall govern. They dreamt of a country where its wealth is shared amongst its people, and where there are houses, security, and comfort. They dreamt of a country where all people enjoy equal human rights and that there is equality before the law. A country where the land is shared amongst those who work it and where there is work and security. They also dreamt of a country where the doors of learning and culture are open to all. Being a teacher himself, Comrade Jackie dreamt of a country where its children will be taught in a safe, secure, and conducive environment and do not walk long distances to school barefoot and on empty stomachs. He despised apartheid and its quest to keep African children as perpetual slaves, and he understood the importance of education. Hence, Comrade Jackie strived for a free, quality education for all. This is the revolutionary Jackie we know, who under difficult conditions when the liberation movement and other people's formations were banned, when our leaders were either in prison or banished or exiled, and when the space for political activities was closed, opted to fight for his people, even if it meant losing life and limb, rather than leave, was on his knees subjugated by races who had colonized our motherland. He was fearless and uncompromising in his conviction to liberate our people. From a humble beginning of abject poverty growing up in Soweto, Comrade Jackie refused to turn a blind eye to the inhuman and oppressive conditions that his people were subjected to by the apartheid regime. Those conditions conscientized him and led him to joining the ranks not only of students' organizations, but also of the African National Congress and the People's Army Umkhonto weSizwe. Upon graduating as a teacher from the University of the North, Tefluop, Comrade Jackie taught at a number of schools in Soweto. One of his specializations was history, and the students who were taught by him attest to the fact that he refused to regurgitate the distorted version of history as presented by the apartheid regime. He would teach about the real history of our people and the world. The teacher in him never died as he continued to teach when he went into exile, subsequent to endless harassment and persecution by apartheid forces. This included teaching at the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College in Tanzania, where he imparted invaluable knowledge to our young cadres. His commitment to the cause and loyalty to the ANC is unquestionable. Hence, we are celebrating a life of a revolutionary extraordinaire, a fearless combatant, and a true servant of the people. Comrade Jackie has left an indelible mark on the political tapestry of not only our country but the world. We will fondly remember his selfless contribution to the liberation of our people, and we hope that the legacy he has left will comfort his family, his friends, and all comrades. Re re go ba lapa la Selebi, ba lapa la Rhodes, Meloko le metswalle le tie moyeng setho a kwehlanga lungehlanga. To Comrade Jackie we say, fare thee well, my brother. Mesebetsi ya hao e bonagetse. We say, pass our greetings to our forebears. Let them know that the organization of the people still continues to fight for a better life for all. Program Director, allow me to take this opportunity to welcome everyone, those who come from near and afar, who has joined us in the celebration of a life well lived. Re robala ka kagiso, Comrade Jackie, may your soul rest in peace, our dear leader, our comrade. Matla, Amandla, all power to the people.
Fellow mourners, we've arranged that we should allow for a guard of honor to be there. I will ask the audience to now and then relieve the colleagues that are in front at the moment with time, if we can do it in shifts. The next speaker, before I call the next speaker, let me recognize the presence of Minister Masuta, Minister Nkwinti, Deputy Minister Makwetla, and Father Smangaliso Mkachwa. The next speaker will be speaking about a student of Jackie Selebi, a colleague, because he served with him in the National Youth Section, Youth and Student Section of the ANC in exile. He served with him also in the National Youth Committee of the ANC in exile.
Thank you, Program Director. The Selebi family, Ntate Khalema Mutlante Lemlekanwa hao, Siaparankwe Meruth Mompati, ministers, the ANC leadership, and the leadership from
other political organizations that are here, dear comrades and friends, hakale ka hore phepihle ho lona ba ha Selebi. Ha ke no kena lengolong hobane ha se tulo ya ka eo, empa ha ke utswe mantswe a tswang ho Mminathoko a re seo nkadimmeng sona ha o re ke se busetse le teng ke tla leka hore ho lokile. I stand here, part of me is in that wooden box that is now Comrade Jackie Selebi's home. Comrade Jackie Selebi, in actual fact I should say Comrade Brad Jackie Selebi, because he meant so many things to especially our generation. He was our mwalimu, he was a friend, a comrade, and a counselor. I grew up in Orlando East, where Comrade Jackie came from. And as we were growing up, we always looked at Comrade Jackie as a fashion, as a man of fashion. For he was neat, he knew fashion, and those of you who were born after 1976 will know that Comrade Jackie was what we at that time called the Ivies. For Comrade Jackie would wear a Dexter boot, front pocket, trouser, and a button-down shirt. He was smart. That's one of the things that we knew about Comrade Jackie. But as fate would have it, in 1971, I started my high school at Orlando High School, which is fondly known as The Rock. Others call it the highest high school. Comrade Jackie was my teacher in 2 subjects. 1, history, 2, Sesotho. But as you would guess, history was our favorite subject, because Comrade Jackie did not just teach history. He explained what that history means, how it relates to our own lives. And he would engage us as students even after school hours. But there's also the side of Comrade Jackie at that time. Being my school teacher, Comrade Jackie was a Moroka Swallows fan. Every Wednesday, Saturday, whenever there was a match, I would go and sell apples and peanuts at the stadium. And Comrade Jackie will be there in the stands. As I pass, sometimes I try to avoid him, and he will say, "Hey, Monna, and he would say to me, "How something, tlapia how it. 'How 'Tlapia how it 'Tlo 'Jeo.'" 'How 'Tlo 'Jeo'? 'How something, tlapia how it 'Tlo 'Jeo.'" 'How something, tlapia how it 'Tlo 'Jeo.'" 'How something, tlapia how it 'Tlo 'Jeo.'" But I'm glad today that I am told that Comrade Jackie was no longer a Moroka Swallows fan, but an Orlando Pirates fan. Comrade Jackie was one of the youngest teachers at Orlando High School, and he was one of the most favored teachers. In 1973, when some of us joined the South African student movement, Comrade Jackie was our teacher, but he became our comrade. He became our counselor. And as we were preparing for the June 16 demonstrations in 1976, Comrade Jackie was the General Secretary of the South African Student Organization Transvaal region at the time. We used to go to Comrade Jackie for counseling. We used to go to Comrade Jackie for resources, as the South African student movement didn't have the resources. I remember in 1975-76, Comrade Jackie chaired a meeting at the DOCC in Orlando East, where we were discussing the question of where do we take the Black consciousness movement. In 1975, Comrade Jackie was drawn into the ANC underground structures under the leadership of the late Joe Dabi. In 1976, in July, Comrade Jackie got arrested and got detained at John Foster Square. When we got arrested in December 1976, I think we were about 200 in one cell at John Foster Square, and we noted at certain hours those that were there before us were starting to communicate. And the late Joe Kabi, who was also arrested with us, came to me and said, "Can you recognize those voices?" I said, "Why, Comrade Joe?" He said, "In prison, communication is very important." And the two voices that I identified were that of Comrade Jackie and Obri Mukwena. And Comrade Joe said, "The sooner you communicate with those comrades, the better." At that ungodly hour, I shouted at Comrade Jackie and said to him, "I am so and so." And he said, "What?" "Aramonna, whatever you say, don't mention Ausi." Ausi at that time, or let me say Ausi, was the name that the detainees used for Comrade Matikizela Mandela. And then Obri Mukwena said to me, "Monna, how sabui?" ba tla o bolaisa nilogy. Nilogy to Aubrey Mokoena meant being kept kneeling for more than 20 days. That's what Aubrey Mokoena was subjected to, kneeling on a cement floor for 20 days. Comrade Jackie taught us at that time the language and the codes that were used in detention at the time. Let me fast forward the events to 1979. We got released in 1978, December, and we linked up with Comrade Jackie. And that's when we started in earnest the work of the ANC. And those of you who follow history will remember that 1979 was the Isandlwane centenary. We used that occasion with the advice of Comrade Jackie to give a clear picture of what the Isandlwane battle entailed. When we formed the Congress of the South African Students, it was with the advice and counseling of Comrade Jackie. Many people, when asked when was the ANC unbanned, would say 1990. But the truth of the matter is that the African National Congress was unbanned in 1979 when the Congress of South African Students was formed. Before that, any use of the word Congress would have led people to prison. Let me also use this opportunity to pay tribute to Masawata Loate, who, when we were forming the Congress of South African Students, it took us many days to decide on the name for this organization. And she says to us, comrades, but why don't you call this thing what you want it to be called? Are you scared of calling it the Congress of South African Students? Others came up with other names. I remember Comrade Kanakana Matsena. Somebody said, why don't we call this student organization Kuvangan, which is a vendor word for organization. And Comrade Kanakana said, I feel insulted as a vendor, for you want to call this thing Kuvangano to hide what you want to call this organization. And it was Masawata Loate who said, let us call it what we want to call it. That's how the name COSAS came into being. Those of you who follow our history will remember that in 1979 there was the Fetis and Moniz strike, and it was Comrade Jackie who said, the sooner you get involved with the trade union movement, the better. That's why COSAS buried Mary Moodley. And as fate would have it, in 1980, Comrade Jackie left for exile. And we met in exile. So Comrade Jackie and especially our generation have shared very happy moments. We have shared prison, we have shared exile. But I think that the best tribute we can pay to Comrade Jackie is for us as South Africans and as parents not to leave education to the government, but for us all to be involved. Because education to Comrade Jackie was one thing that he was very passionate about. Comrades and friends, thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Super. Is Hot Sticks and Glenn here? I've been trying to find out if they are around. There's a journalist who's lost a black bag. If you have a bag next to you which you don't know whose it is, can you please bring it forward for somebody for the owner to come and pick it up? The next item on the agenda is a tribute by veteran youth leader, Ambassador Willie Lentlapo, who will cover the life of Jackie as a youth leader in exile and within SASO. Comrade Ambassador Willie.
Thank you very much, Comrade Manal. I'm going to do something that normally I wouldn't, and say all protocol observed, because that's the best way of avoiding protocol. But also because I think Comrade Paul Mashatile and Super had already done so. So I'll only address myself to Mrs. Selebi and the family in its entirety. We are sadly gathered here in our numbers to bid farewell to our revered comrade and leader, Jackie Selebi. Mjekana, as we fondly referred to him, left us at a time when we expected him to recover from his long illness. For those of us who were in hospital at the time of his passing, we were left helpless and felt robbed of a friend and a genuine comrade. But paradoxically, we were also relieved that he ultimately had found internal rest, free from pain. Allow me to extend on behalf of a particular circle of friends our heartfelt condolences to his beloved wife Anne, their 2 sons and the entire family. Please find solace in the knowledge that we shall continue to be your pillar of strength and support, and that we'll continue to defend him from the vultures that are hell-bent to distort and prey on his legacy, as they did when he was still alive. We still have to hear from those who were casting doubts about the decision of the Medical Parole Advisory Board to recommend that he be released from incarceration due to ill health. Confess that you were wrong in what you wrote and said about the condition of his health, and that you were not qualified to arrive at that outrageous conclusion. But do not end there. Confess that you are also wrong about the things you wrote and said about him. Failure to do so will only leave us with the conclusion that you regard yourselves as a special breed of human species that never make mistakes. Maybe you also smoke a special blend of nyaupe. I first met Jackie as a student activist in 1972 at the DOCC in Orlando East during a meeting of students that were expelled from what we used to call Bush universities. Following the closure of these universities due to strikes organized to demand the reinstatement of the late Nkgopotso Tiro and all students expelled from TEFLOP. Following the SASO Alice Declaration, which was adopted during a pre-arranged meeting at the Federal Theological Seminary on the 12th of May 1972, the Alice Declaration resolved that students nationwide should close down black institutions of higher learning through lecture boycotts in support of the expelled Nkgopotso Abraham Tiro. Tiro was expelled because of a graduation speech in which he attacked the segregated education and white domination of black institutions. The purpose of the meeting at DOCC was to devise strategies for the mobilization of parents and communities to support our demands. We had from the onset of the founding of the South African Students' Organization, SASO, declared that we are black first before we were students, and that our experience as students was just a part of the oppression of blacks by the apartheid regime. We had come to a determination, after reflecting on the history of these universities, that the 1959 Extension of Universities Act number 45, which established the ethnic-based youth bush universities, was intended to guarantee the supply of future civil servants to the Bantustans. This was because the same year, the Promotion of Bantustan Self-Government Act number 46 and the Bantu Investment Corporation Act, which amongst other things awarded bursaries to students to study in these bush universities, was also enacted. Mjegana's experience as an activist, teacher and organizer will come in handy for the role he was to play as the leader of the youth and student section of the ANC. He was appointed to the youth committee during a conference of the ANC youth in 1981, which I also have the privilege to be appointed to head. Jackie became our representative in Somafco to help organize the students in that institution. He also represented us, the National Youth Committee, in the Scholarship Committee. It was also during this period that, in consultation with President Oliver Tambo, we agreed that the wish of members of the appointed National Youth Leadership should undergo military training to undergo military training be granted. As a result, Jackie, Manala Manzini and Paul Masetla went to Moscow for training in military combat work. From Moscow, they proceeded to Kashitu, one of our camps in Angola, for further military training, including a survival course. This training reinforced his already acquired experience as an underground organizer and activist while still in South Africa. This sharpened his leadership skills when he was later elected head of the ANC Youth and Students, particularly in the process of building further contacts with the leadership of SAICO in particular, which led to consultations about the revival and launch and relaunch of the ANC Youth League after the unbanning of our movement. When Comrade Maxi Sulu completed his tour of duty as the ANC representative in the World Federation of Democratic Youth, we found a fitting replacement in Jackie, who represented us well. It was in this capacity that he continued to be our target man, mobilizing the international youth and student movement for the isolation of the apartheid regime and support for our struggle. He also mobilized material support for the Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College, where he taught, and our camps in Angola. Jackie helped us to consolidate the relationships built over many years with progressive youth and students internationally. He was an effective negotiator and consensus builder during the difficult climate of the Cold War. As part of the African Commission of WFD, he continuously sensitized that organization about the situation of African youth, particularly in countries under military dictatorship, reinforcing our work as executive committee members of both the Pan-African Youth Movement and the All Africa Students Union, including, of course, the International Union of Students. It is for this reason that the African Commission of WFD, meeting in Eritrea last week as part of the celebration of the 70th anniversary of WFD, set aside time to pay tribute to Comrade Jackie in acknowledgement of his role in WFD for promoting the interests and aspirations of African youth decades ago. This was done at the request of the Frelimo and SWAPO delegates to that meeting. His experience at WFD exposed him to multilateral diplomacy and pertinent issues of global peace and security, including disarmament and issues relating to the new international economic order, preparing him very well for his later role as an ambassador in Geneva and Director General of the Department of Foreign Affairs. We shall remember him as a selfless revolutionary, a genuine comrade, a powerful storyteller, and a man of jokes, and the many jokes we will always continue to laugh about as we reflect on the many moments we shared with him. He leaves us with many lessons about life in general and the real meaning of being worthy servants of our people. I could relate a number of jokes that we used to share with him, but I'm going to avoid that because Dr. Aaron Mutsoledi, you'll have a problem. Robala ka khotso tlo hamba kahle inkonto.
Thank you, Ambassador Nhlapo. Kwela phezu kwendlu batshela, awu mangifike ekhaya, awu kwela phezu kwendlu batshela, awu mangifike ekhaya, awu kwela uno, jabolo mangifike ekhaya, jabolo mama, jabolo mangifike ekhaya, awu kwela 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 kwela, awu mangifike ekhaya, awu kwela 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 kwela, awu mangifike ekhaya, jabolo mama, jabolo mangifike ekhaya. Thank you. He will not be happy if we're here and we're not also to celebrate his life. Comrade Hotsticks, I've been looking for you. I hear you are around. Please, can you give us an item?
Can we get everybody to sing? One more.
Thank you, Hotsticks. May I take this opportunity to recognize the presence of the Minister of Police, Natin Tleko, the presence of Isitalo Andre, Umama Gertrude Shope, and General Spiwe Nyanda, retired. The next speaker to pay tribute is Minister Dipuo Peters. Minister Dipuo was in the youth inside the country at the time when the youth section of the ANC was charged with the responsibility of linking up with the youth structures inside the country in preparation for the launch of the Youth League. Minister Dipuo Peters will cover that, the role of Jackie in that process. Minister.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Amandla! Long live the spirit of Comrade Jackie Selebi, long live. Long live the spirit of Comrade Jackie Selebi, long live. Thank you very much, Program Director. I think I will join Comrade Welile in saying all protocol observed, except to recognize the NEC members of the ANC, as well as the former the Deputy President of the Republic, Ntate Khalima Mutlante and Mrs. Mutlante, Mrs. Zanele Mbeki, Isitalandwe, Meruth, Lim Megeti, ministers and deputy ministers, and all protocol observed. I was just saying to Comrade Jesse that if Comrade Jackie was amongst us, we would all be laughing. We would all be having a joyous occasion, even if it is a sad occasion. Comrade Jackie was somebody who always made us laugh. And I'm sorry, Program Director, I have to say this. He once told us a story at the time when we used to engage with them about how men, in particular those who were living in Soweto in his times, who had relationships with nurses at Baragwanath, who even those, he said there was a man who gave himself a name called Mabone. And this Mabone never went to school, but he had a relationship with a nurse at Baragwanath. And Mabone made people to believe that he is well known, and including his girlfriend. And he would drive in the township in broad daylight with his lights on, and people would caution him about his lights and keep on saying, "Hey, when am Mabone?" And he would greet. "Hey, when am lights?" He would greet. And that was how this man convinced his girlfriend of his popularity in Soweto. Comrades and compatriots, today we are here sad with deep pains in our hearts to say our final goodbye to one of our own, Comrade Jackie, a leader, a husband, a father, a brother, a colleague, and a committed combatant and comrade of the African National Congress. I'm standing here to represent the generation of youth who took the baton from Comrade Jackie and his collective. We who politically benefited from the teachings, training, as well as leadership of this gallant and fearless freedom fighter. Comrade Jackie was elected as the head of ANC Youth Section 2 years after the International Year of the Youth, and his contact and collaboration with the South African Youth Congress intensified. Comrade Welile, I want to indicate that despite the fact that SAICO was launched when the youth section thought it was prematurely, but we who were inside the country believed that it was the correct moment, the youth section, through Comrade Jackie, recognized that leadership of SAICO. And in fact, just after the election of this leadership, we were shuttled and commanded and sent to Lusaka to consult with the youth section, to actually explain why we went ahead and did what we did. But Comrade Jackie, recognizing the importance of making sure that there is no lull inside the country, convinced the ANC leadership that that was a correct move and that we need to continue doing this particular work that we did. And coincidentally, the ascendancy of Comrade Jackie to the youth section was in the same year of the formation of SAICO. This formation of SAICO was a culmination of years of hard work in which more than 150 locally based youth congresses came together clandestinely in Cape Town to declare freedom or death, victory certain. Comrade Jackie was sent the fearlessness and hatred of oppression from the Moncada and June 16 generation to be known as Madinoge Detachment. Soon afterwards, again, Comrade Jackie led the youth to the World Federation of Youth Congress or Democratic Youth to a global youth festival in North Korea, which included representatives of SAICO, SANSCO, COSAS, and amongst them the late Norman Mashabane, our current ambassador to the UAE, Khaukele Lokhoro, Moeti Mpuru who was at the time the Secretary General of SANSCO, and many others from COSAS. Comrade Jackie was instrumental in ensuring that the South African Youth Congress always goes and consults with the leadership in exile. Comrade Jackie was instrumental in another clandestine meeting between the newly elected SAICO leadership and the National Executive Committee of the ANC in Harare, in which Comrade Oliver Tambo was the chairperson. And the youth were commanded to intensify the struggle to render apartheid unworkable and ungovernable. We were instructed to sustain mass mobilization, but we were also instructed to work and use facilities of leaders like Comrade Sidney Mafumati at COSATU, Comrade Khalima Motlante at NUM, and Comrade Jesse Juate at an Ecumenical Advice Bureau, which was led by Beyers Naudé. These were the structures that provided the South African Youth Congress with office space and resources to be able to make sure that we can communicate with the leadership in exile. But also, Comrade Jesse, and I'm sure you would remember the mandate that you were given to ensure that the young people get bursaries to be able to continue studying so that when we get to a new and democratic South Africa, we don't have Bosihamba Nabo. Comrade Jackie used to say that there would be people who don't know even when they are given a document to read what is in the document, because they believed that their only work was to make sure that we bring down apartheid and not to prepare themselves for leading a democratic South Africa. Through Comrade Jackie, the South African Youth Congress was part of all the forums of the ANC, planning for the demise of apartheid, including the drafting of the Harare Declaration. The possibility of a negotiated settlement in what was declared the Decade of Liberation was also explored. It was in this spirit that SAICO was encouraged to make overtures to the Afrikaner Youth, hence a meeting between SAICO and the Jeugkrag. Jeugkrag was the National Party Youth League or youth structure that was led by Martinus van Schalkwyk. These meetings happened because Comrade Jackie insisted that there is no way the youth section can meet with Jeugkrag outside the shores of South Africa when there is young people led by the South African Youth Congress, which the Jeugkrag must meet with. After several engagements, and when comrades in the youth sections were convinced that we are en route in the right direction, they agreed to meet Jeugkrag in Gaborone. Comrade Jackie was central to all this. SAICO leadership was at times in contact and communication with the youth section in general and Comrade Jackie in particular, conversing about the process of how to convert and transform SAICO into the Youth League. That was so because SAICO was a placekeeper. From the beginning, there was no ambiguity about the role of SAICO, that SAICO was a political organization of young people in South Africa, and it was a placekeeper for the true organization of the people, which is the African National Congress. The ANC in Lusaka provided us financial and material resources, gave us guidance and leadership, and SAICO in its first Congress, actually its first and last Congress, Comrade Ignatius, we resolved on our own dissolution because we believed that the conditions that allowed for the re-establishment of the Youth League was ready. SAICO worked closely with the youth section to begin conscientizing its members about this eventuality, and the massive distribution of ANC Youth League literature was done throughout the country. Jackie and the PNYC process, I would want to indicate that during the time of the unbanning, there was a time when we had to engage, and there were people who believed that SAICO should continue as a youth organization that will focus on social issues, and the youth section would be the core structure that establishes the Youth League. And that was immediately dismissed because we knew what the place of SAICO was. The Youth League structure, or the Youth League founding structure after unbanning, was called the PNYC, the Provisional National Youth Committee, which was constituted by comrades from the youth section, from SAICO, from SANSCO, from NUSAS, and other progressive youth structures. And like I indicated, this structure was called the Provisional Youth Committee. Its main objective was to build structures of the ANC Youth League and prepare for the ANC Youth League's first conference after unbanning. Comrade Jackie was very central in making sure that we prepare well for that particular conference, and the conference was held in Kwandebele. Comrade Jackie ensured that in the debates about the constitution of the ANC Youth League, as well as its motto, we recognize the centrality of the ANC. And once again ensured that there's no ambiguity where we draw as the ANC Youth League our mandate. The ANC Youth League would be administratively autonomous, but politically an integral part of the ANC. The policies and political programs of the Youth League would be drawn or derived from those of the ANC, but with specific focus on matters affecting the youth. The ANC Youth League was to mobilize youth and bring them under the banner of the African National Congress. I would want to say that Comrade Jackie was central to making sure that even at the time of unbanning, the young people in South Africa and the young people from exile, from the various branches of the youth section all over the world, can work together and be able to bring about this ANC Youth League. And I would want to say that when Comrade Jackie handed over the Youth League in its formation stages during 1990 after unbanning, he did make it clear at Orlando Stadium that I'm handing over the baton to young people who must take the Youth League forward, who will make sure that they protect the gains of democracy. They should be those forces that the ANC can rely on to expand and drive its agenda inside South Africa. Comrade Jackie was one person who made sure that throughout the processes of South African Youth Congress and the Youth League after unbanning, we've got resources. Resources in terms of money, not small money. I remember, Comrade Welile, you would know about these things. We used to go to exile, to go to Lusaka, to go and get money for the programs of young people in this country. And there is a bag, Comrade Jackie used to call it, and Comrade Rapu, where he is in Paris, would remember that when we go on an SOS mission, he would say, Comrade Jackie, you are bringing the bag. Today we are here to lay to rest and say our final farewells to somebody who was selfless, who worked very hard for us to be where we are today, but who always believed that the unity of the ANC is supreme. Comrade Jackie, even when he was in hospital, on his sick bed, always spoke about the unity of the African National Congress and us making it possible that the agenda for which the ANC was established and founded should never be forgotten. To lead the people of South Africa out of poverty, out of unemployment, but also out of inequality. I remember that whenever you visited Comrade Jackie in hospital, when you leave the hospital, you'll ask yourself, am I the sick one or is Comrade Jackie the sick one? Because you'll come out there so motivated and feeling so well, and yet you went to see somebody that you knew that he is physically not well. Comrade N and the family, Comrade Jackie is no more. But I know you'll remember him fondly. You'll remember his jokes. You'll remember how he used to make everybody happy. And I actually remember also one joke he played on you, Comrade N, when you visited him in Cape Town one day, and there was a festival that we went to, and he asked you, mare eno go ra gore nka go duelela madi a mantsintsi yana wa tloka go Gauteng ka sefofane wa tla go dula mo Sabini. And that was the type of comrade that we had. Gobora Selebi re a lo leboga gore tsalela mogaka mogale se khatlamela masisi re lebogela karolo ya lona mo go mo rotloetseng go tswela pele ka kharaka le gore le ga buela mo gae lo ska la ipha nako ya go nna le ena la nna la ntse la re ke karolo e lona lo ka ya belang setšhaba sa South Africa. Gape re a lo leboga ka kemonokeng e lo ileng la mo fa yone ka nako ya matlhoko, ka nako e ene e le gore o šušumediwa mo dilong tse le di le dintsi le nako tsewa tsa go tsamaya kgotlatshekelo. Re a lo leboga re re lalang ka ntho madi a tshologa lo re tsaletse mogaka re a lo leboga. Comrade Jackie, farewell my leader, farewell our comrade and political educator. Rest in peace. O tla kopana le ba bang ko pele o tla ba gopotsa gore o ne tlhola o re bolella ha re ile ko Lusaka gore ko Lusaka ha o ordera dijo o itse gore dijo tsa mowa o tla di bona jaaka dijo tsa ko phitlhong tse e leng gore ga ona choice, mme o ba bolelele gore gompieno o tlogela South Africa e leng gore e na le yone choice ke South Africa e leng gore ga se re fitlhelele dikgwetlo tsotlhe mme re ikaeletse gore mo leineng la gago re tla na re ditsweledisa pele. Ke a leboga.
Thank you, Minister Peters. There were several messages that were received. We would want to acknowledge the number of messages received. We will ensure that we do pass them to the families, but there is one or two messages that we would want to have presented. I'll ask Ambassador Ntlapo to come and present a tribute from President Thabo Mbeki. He will be followed by George Nene, who will be speaking and paying tribute to Jackie Selebi as a diplomat.
Thank you, Comrade Manal. A statement of the patron of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Thabo Mbeki, at the funeral of Jackie Selebi, 31st January 2015. When Jackie Selebi passed away just over a week ago, the ANC and our country's progressive movement as a whole lost an outstanding revolutionary and patriot. even though we knew that he had been very unwell for some time, having to undergo kidney dialysis a number of times every day. The news that he had died produced both immense shock and great sadness. As fellow combatants in the mass movement for the liberation of our country and people, and co-architects for the reconstruction of South Africa as a non-racial and non-sexist democracy, we knew that Jackie represented with regard to the realization of both these goals. Without having ever sought any accolades, Jackie played important roles in the Black Consciousness movement before the banning of the BCM organizations in 1977. In the ANC underground structures, and in the ANC in exile, and after it was unbanned, and the state organs of democratic South Africa. As an example of what I mean, a few will know the role that Jackie played in ensuring that many in the Black Consciousness movement came into the ANC and accepted its leadership role after the banning of the BCM organizations. The significance of this did not consist merely in the strengthening of the ANC. Its strategic importance lay in obviating the possibility of what would have become a disastrous fault line dividing our country's broad movement for liberation if the ANC and the Black Consciousness movement had developed as two separate and competing streams of that movement. Already by 1974, many in the Black People's Convention, led by Steve Biko, and SASO at its headquarters in Durban, had realized that it was vitally necessary that they had to form a strategic relationship with the ANC, exactly to ensure that the liberation movement did not splinter into contending factions. Jackie Selebi was among these. Thus, it was that when Black Consciousness movement organizations were banned after the murder of Steve Biko, he and others persuaded many in the PCM that there was no longer any need for them to maintain what was projected as an equal distance from both the ANC and the PAC. It was exactly because of strategic interventions such as was made by Jackie Selebi, the late Ntato Mutlana and others, that it became possible to build the biggest mass movement against apartheid rule, led by the ANC, even during the years of the illegality of the ANC. Similarly, we can make bold to say that when Jackie Selebi and his peers, such as Max Sisulu and others, were given the responsibility to lead the ANC Youth and Student section when we were in exile, they helped greatly to strengthen the youth movement inside our country, both organizationally and politically. Further, as leading activists in such organizations as the World Federation of Democratic Youth, the International Union of Students, as well as the Pan-African Youth Movement and the All Africa Students Union, they helped to influence an entire generation of the progressive youth in Africa and throughout the world to see the task of the liberation of South Africa and Southern Africa as their own. They also made an enormous contribution in terms of affirming and deepening the internationalist character of our movement, and therefore an important player in the struggle for the all-round emancipation of the African people and the construction of a better world. The 30th June to 6 July 206 edition of ANC Today carried a letter from the President entitled, and I quote, "The Revolutionary Task of the Mandarins." In this letter, amongst other things, I said, in terms of our Constitution, This public administration has the responsibility, amongst other things, to help, 1, heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice and fundamental human rights. Improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person, and build a united and democratic South Africa able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. Obviously, an organization as big, varied and differentiated as our public administration, and charged with the task to contribute to the fulfillment of these fundamentally important tasks, requires a skilled, educated and dedicated leadership cadre. It needs at its head its own mandarins, the skilled managerial leadership without which it cannot function as one coherent machine, loyal to the public administration principles specified in our Constitution, as well as the overall leadership of the National Democratic Revolution. The democratic government identified Jackie as one of these mandarins. We gave him challenging responsibilities as the then Director General of the Department of Foreign Affairs and later the National Commissioner of the South African Police Service. In this regard, I would like to say that I do not recall any occasion when any of the ministers under whom he served or anybody else in government complaining that he was failing in his duties. Rather, I am certain that none of the annual reports submitted by the ministers to the Public Service Commission ever indicated that he had acted in a manner inconsistent with his constitutional, statutory or departmental obligations, all of which required our mandarins that they should serve as principal architects of the new institutions of our democratic state. Indeed, even as our courts found him guilty of corruption, they acquitted him on the charge that he had acted to defeat the ends of justice, and which he would have been guilty if he had acted to frustrate his own arrest and prosecution. I am certain that many throughout our country are deeply concerned that not all is well with both the organization which Jackie served faithfully for many decades, the ANC, and the democratic state he sought to build as a member of parliament, a diplomat, and an accounting officer in our national departments. It is exactly these circumstances which have made so many of us to mourn the untimely departure of Selebi. This is because we fondly imagine that if he were with us in good health and with no encumbrance, being the principled revolutionary he was, he would have made an important contribution in terms of helping both his movement and the country to correct whatever might have gone or is going wrong. Truly, he belonged among those outstanding patriots about whom we can say, Agako ofana naye. However, despite everything I have said, the fact of the matter is that as we bury him today, Jackie will take with him into his final resting place the immense blemish that our courts had found him guilty of the serious crime of corruption and sentenced him to many years in prison. During the period leading up to his prosecution, some in our country made repeated calls that I, as President of the Republic, should suspend Jackie from his post as National Commissioner of the SABC because of allegations that were made that he had engaged in acts of corruption. I resisted these calls, stating that I would do this when I had concrete information which strongly suggested that the National Commissioner acted as alleged, and argued that nobody had given me such information. For this reason, some in our country charged that I was protecting Jackie from prosecution because he was my friend, and that I had lied when I said nobody had given me concrete information according to which prima facie Jackie had a case to answer. I have never responded publicly to these false accusations, and I will not abuse the solemn occasion of Jackie's funeral to do so. The time will come when I will comment fully on all the controversial matters which attach to his arrest and prosecution. However, I would like to take this opportunity to say that first, it was precisely because of the intervention of the presidency that the Scorpions were able to carry out their investigative work concerning Jackie, especially as this related to access to such documents. Secondly, we did not suspend the then National Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Vusi Pikoli, to stop him arresting and prosecuting Jackie. The matter at issue had to do with the absolute imperative falling on the shoulders of the head of government to ensure proper cooperation between the relevant organs of state. Thus, indeed, when the then acting NDPP, Mr. Mkote Dimpier, informed me that he had a warrant to arrest the National Commissioner, I did not contest this. We agreed about when he would effect this arrest. This was because, as the appointing authority of the National Commissioner of the SABS, I needed time to talk to the SABS leadership and to appoint an acting National Commissioner, an obligation which Mr. Mpier fully understood and accepted. On June 14, 2013, at least one of our newspapers queried an article under the heading, Agliotti, it was me or Selebi. The newspaper quoted Mr. Glenn Agliotti as having said, in fact, when the Scorpions took me in the foyer of my own house, the officer said, I am arresting you for the murder of Brad Kebbel. And then said, but if you give up, then top cop Jackie Selebi will give you a Section 204 immunity. I asked, if I do, who are you going to arrest for killing Kebbel then? That's how obvious the whole plot was, that it was never about me, it was never about Kebbel. It was a feud between one law enforcement agency wanting to bring down the most powerful policeman in Africa, Agliotti said. I was very pleased. I was very pleased when I read in our media last July that the National Prosecuting Authority was conducting an internal investigation relating to the prosecution of our former National Commissioner, the late Selebi, whom we bury today. It is my fervent hope that the NPA does indeed carry out an honest and thorough investigation into this matter and not bury it simply because Jackie will have been buried. I am certain that Jackie's memory lives in the hearts and minds of his dear wife Anne, their children and the rest of the Selebi family, as it does amongst the countless numbers of those who engage in struggle side by side with him to liberate our country and build a new society. Because we know so much about what he did, which was noble and good, and which served the interests of the people of South Africa. Because we know so much about his honesty, his attachment to principle and his selflessness, having worked in close proximity to him for many decades. Because so many of us have grown fond of him because of who and what he was. Neither his family nor the rest of us remember Jackie as a villain that some have claimed he was, but as a hero. Jackie has died, but the question lingers on and will not die. Who was right and who was wrong? Perhaps the NPA will help us all to answer this question. It is with great sadness that I convey Zanela's and my heartfelt condolences to his dear wife Anne, our sister, and the children and the rest of the Selebi family. Agako Ofananae. Rest in peace, dear friend and patriot.
Thank you. We will ask the United Reformed Church Choir to give us an item. Following is a tribute by Ambassador George Nene, who will be talking about Jackie, the diplomat. Ambassador.
Thank you, Program Director, for restoring my surname, because the printers decided to excise it away from me, and I'm a very proud Nene. I will follow the wise counsel by Welile and Super, but I always try to shy away from saying all protocol observed, because as a former teacher and a diplomat forever, those words don't reside with me well. It's a shortcut, and if you do a shortcut as a teacher, I give you less marks. So I will recognize Mrs. Selebi, the children, and the entire Selebi family. I recognize Mary Ruth and Megeti, that's how we fondly call them in exile, because they have a special place in our hearts, we who left our mothers at home. I recognize Comrade Khalima and his dear wife. Unfortunately, because of time, lumped together all ministers and deputy ministers present here. And as a former, I also want to recognize the former ones. Recognize the leadership of the ANC and the Alliance. Recognize the leadership of the South African Police Service as led by the Commissioner here. And of course recognize those from the diplomatic corps that have joined us today. I was asked to talk about Jackie the diplomat. Obviously, I've known Jackie before he became a diplomat, but I'll try and restrict myself to that. I had entitled my presentation or my speech or my tribute, The Life and Times of Jacob Selebi, Jackie the Diplomat, and have a topic, subtopic which says From Parliament to Diplomacy. President Nelson Mandela appointed the late as a South African permanent representative to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary. I felt I should give this title or responsibility, as we call it in the ANC, a context. The implication of conferring such a status on any ambassador is that it carries a heavy responsibility than that of an ordinary ambassador. This position places a responsibility for you at given times to take decisions on behalf of the state. As if this was not scary enough, the terrain of struggle, so to say, entails that your theater of operations, that is the United Nations and its agencies and other international organizations, is so huge that in Geneva there are more than 40 international organizations, which you as an ambassador, you have to cover. As if that was not enough, more than these 40 organizations, you still have to deal with 193 countries. To me, that was scary enough, so I called Jackie. I said, "Hey, Chief, how did you do this?" You know what he said? Typically, he said, "Utabona." The above scenario implies that you, as a head of mission, or ambassador and the head of mission, you are responsible for a huge budget that runs into millions of rands. Central to your task is to professionally carry out your diplomatic duties, manage your staff, which is mainly composed of a South African component and a locally recruited one, and ensure their upkeep and their morale such that it guarantees quality and efficient delivery. Added to this complex scenario is that Jackie had to ensure a smooth transition from an apartheid diplomacy to a democratic one that is informed by a set of values different from the previous. More challenging was how to keep old allies and win over old enemies of the ANC within the diplomatic community. Be that as it was, Jackie distinguished himself as a diplomat par excellence. And this saw him upgrading the respect or gaining the respect and the honor of our mission within the diplomatic community. Our mission, when I arrived in Geneva, was regarded as one of the best. It also gained him respect and honor, which earned him a place of honor with the Africa Group, with a group of developing countries, especially the Africa Group, in line with the objectives of our foreign policy. Consequently, the Africa Group proposed him to be their candidate to chair the Human Rights Commission, and was thus elected as chair of the fourth session. For the sterling work he did in chairing and guiding this huge, important human rights body, the International Service for Human Rights, it's an organization, the biggest organization on human rights internationally, conferred on him the award, the Human Rights Award. In the field of disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation, Jackie, as chair of what is now known as the Oslo Diplomatic Conference on a convention to ban anti-personnel landmines, he achieved the adoption of this convention in an amazingly shortest time in the history of convention making in the United Nations. And for this, he was also given an award. There are many outstanding achievements as Jackie, the diplomat, he managed to achieve. He was thus later promoted by our government to come back and take over as Director General of the Department of Foreign Affairs. This was also no easy feat, as he had to drive another tricky transition from the old order to the democratic one. Program Director, in his life and time, he went from parliament to diplomacy. Let me be bold by saying, from the dusty streets of Soweto to the biggest capitals of the world and the highest forum of negotiations and deliberations, the United Nations. To conclude, in the words of the officials of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, the locally recruited staff in Geneva, and I quote, Mr. Selebi had respect for everyone in the missions abroad and in the department, and treated professional diplomats, cleaners, and security personnel with respect. Close quote. In executing his duties, he was firm and fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade George. You have heard the different capacities that Jacob served in. Before I call upon our current National Commissioner, General Ria Piecha, I would like to read a message by colleagues who served in the South African police services with Commissioner Selebi. As we sat to ponder what we should say about you, it increasingly became clear that there are just too many diverse memories that many of us who worked with you in the police would have. It was 8 years. 8 years of hard work, long days and very short nights of strategizing and planning how to get the police to deal with intergroup violence that obtained at the time, gang violence, pagats, cash-in transit robberies, and mall robberies. The very first day you assumed command of the South African Police Service at police headquarters, you were ready to patrol the streets and prevent crime. Although you were the National Commissioner, you taught us the value of listening even to the faintest voices. You taught us how to consult not only your fellow colleagues, but the communities we served. We all grew and policing changed. Provincial commissioners became accustomed to what cynics came to call the Selebi trials. Of course, these were not trials, but were performance-focused meetings where you insisted that police commissioners should direct and focus resources towards fighting crime. We trust that those who came after us continue to insist that police management meetings throughout the hierarchy of the organization are directed to discuss crime and how to reduce crime. Those who served in the police during the 8-year period that you have been National Commissioner will remember you fondly and differently. Policemen and women will know that you have raised their salary dispensation at a number of times so that they could earn decent salaries because you valued the contribution of your foot soldiers. A young female and dedicated detective from the East Rand will always remember you for having taken her with you to attend an Interpol meeting in France. The 2 young detectives who became homesick after having been posted far away from their homes will always remember you for having transferred them back home to be close to their families. Commissioner Andre Press will remember that being a senior member, he sat with you until the deep of the night in the far-flung rural border in the Northern Cape, not only gazing at the bright stars that lit the night, but talking to him very strongly and serious about what needed to be done to stabilize the levels of crime. Commissioner Mulangi Mpejo remembers you for your input and support that you gave when they had to step in and neutralize the reign of terror perpetrated by right-wing extremists. He relished the many hours that you had spent together at their Tactical Command Center and is grateful for the time you spared to reassure young intelligence officers of their worth. Commissioner Hamilton Ngidi will say that after serving as a black policeman in the old SAP, he only felt valued and respected as a human being under your command. Commissioner Calvin Singani will remember you for empowering the police and being the first National Commissioner to have prioritized physical resources for rural and far-flung police stations. He had the fortitude and authority to command his forces. Commissioner Cindy Lemfazi experienced you as a great source of inspiration, a teacher who made him understand the mission of the South African Police Services and his own role therein. He remains committed to pursuing the very ideals that both of you stood for, making South Africa safe and secure. You have made me. I am who I am because of you, quote unquote. Director Selvi Bukaba will remember you for your counsel when he crafted communication strategies dealing with difficult and complex matters during challenging times and defending the reputation of the police. Those who worked in supply chain of the police will talk of your selflessness. They will remember that when you were given a present in your personal capacity, an armored Mercedes-Benz car valued at more than 5 million rand at the time, you had no hesitation and difficulty donating it to SABC. Our colleagues from across our immediate borders will tell the world that you did not only understand the imperative of a regional and international approach to fighting crime, but that you walked the talk. They will vouch that you were always in the forefront of mobilizing resources to fight crime for all. We want to pass our condolences to the family of our commander and to thank you for having encouraged him to be what he enjoyed, a true servant of the people of our times. Our special thanks to OCN for her continued love, care, and nursing for the Commissioner. In your memory, would like to appeal to the public of South Africa to support policemen and women who were called upon to perform this difficult and thankless job. Your spirit will live with us. It was issued by former Commissioner Tim Williams. I would like to call upon Commissioner Ria Piecha, who is the current Commissioner of SABC.
begin.Selebi, devoted widow of Commissioner Selebi, and your 2 sons, all other family members and friends present here today, comrades from the African National Congress, our leaders from government present here today, as well as those from Parliament, including the provinces. Distinguished guests from all walks of life and from across the globe. And let me take this opportunity for us in the sector to recognize the former General Secretary of Interpol and the President of the Nobel Foundation, Mr. Ronald Noble, who has joined us here today. I greet you with sadness, and I greet you with humility as we bid farewell to Commissioner Selebi, man of the African soil, one who sacrificed so much for so many for the greater part of his life on earth. We as the men and women in blue are grateful to be accorded this opportunity to say a few words at this farewell gathering of our dear Commissioner. My sincere thanks to the family for extending the invitation and opportunity to us. And I do want to say to you, we cherish the opportunity of sharing with the gathering here what he meant to us as a national commissioner. He shall remain that. And indeed, we're standing on a firm foundation of what he has built in the service. It is easy, fellow mourners, to stand from the outside, looking into the SABC and find fault. The challenges associated with building this mighty organization are enormous. Commissioner Selebi took over from Commissioner Fivers at the end of 1999. And whilst Commissioner Fivers had concentrated on the difficult task of amalgamating 11 policing agencies into one police service, Commissioner Selebi tackled crime head-on from the get-go. And today, as we start talking about the crime that is longitudinally starting to show a south-facing downward trend, indeed, I can boldly, on behalf of us men and women in blue, attest to the fact that he really built the formation and the foundation for the trend that we are experiencing. He also devoted time to continue the transformation process that was begun by Commissioner Fivers.
he was very determined in driving that agenda. And he did so with the aim of improving service delivery and protecting the people of this country. And indeed, we should take into account the fact that he was taking this quilt that had many pages to ensure that we can have a coordinated offering in servicing the citizens of this country. When Commissioner Selebi took over, many serving members of the SABS were quite apprehensive, especially those still in the service who had been responsible for his detention without trial and torture during the struggle era. It is a pity that so few members of the public were aware of the huge amount of forgiveness present in Mr. Selebi's magnanimous heart, of his tremendous sense of reconciliation and forgiveness. During his first few months in the police, Commissioner Selebi told his colleagues that a particular member still serving at the head office had been one of those who tortured him during the detention periods. He called the officer and told him that he had forgiven him and that he would never need to fear any form of discrimination at his hands. He not only did that, Commissioner Selebi vowed never to identify this officer to his colleagues. And from the date he started to the date he left, Commissioner Selebi never did. In his first year in office, Commissioner Selebi launched Operation Crackdown, which in the first 6 months of its initiation saw 489,000 persons being arrested, over 100,000 of them for serious crimes. Today, our modern day operations are still geared and anchored on that innovative and pioneering work that Commissioner Selebi undertook. These operations continued for an extended period and evolved into the annual festive season operations still being undertaken annually, what we call duty calls today. In 2001, Commissioner Selebi took the unprecedented step, as already indicated, of introducing a special salary dispensation to the lower-ranking members of SABS. This was history, and he continued to write it in the police. These so-constables getting the largest increase in their history of occupation in the service, and members of the top echelons forfeiting their increases so that the lower levels could be lifted to more acceptable salary levels. It was a badly hidden secret that Selebi fought long and hard to score this victory for the lower-ranking officers and police officials. Such was his nature. He didn't feel the need to take credit because he was magnanimous in spirit and in his heart. He didn't take credit for all these endeavors to improve the lives of many. Commissioner Selebi was a champion of all forms of equality. Under his watch, this male-dominated sector, being the police, saw women being appointed to the levels of Deputy National Commissioner. It is under his reign that we saw the first woman being appointed as a provincial commissioner. It is under his reign that we saw the SABC Women's Network being established. It is under his reign that we saw the first women being accepted to train in the elite special task force of the police. And I would want to believe that some of us who came later are beneficiaries of this pioneering spirit of the son of the soil. Building on his previous experience as a world leader in banning anti-personnel mines during his tenure, the SABC continued working with counterparts in Mozambique in unearthing and destroying huge arms caches in that country under the auspices of Operation Rachel. Commissioner Selebi was also instrumental in seeing the first group of South African Police Service members being included in peacekeeping missions in Sudan. Today, we're still there because he had the foresight and the vision. One of his greatest feats, one which has gone down in South African history, was an intelligence-driven operation which saw over 20 members of the Boeremag being arrested prior to their final plans for driving this country into anarchy. And indeed, today, some of us might have forgotten, but it was Commissioner Selebi who actually saw to their arrest. In a record-setting complex trial, which was heard in the Pretoria High Court over the period of an entire decade. The men were convicted on very serious charges and sentenced to lengthy terms of imprisonment. Let us never forget this important event on how Commissioner Selebi led the way with strength and leadership. Let us not allow trivialities to take away for those who have worked hard to serve us as a nation. The South African Police Service also set on the pathway of becoming world leaders in major event management during Commissioner Selebi's term in the office as a National Commissioner. And I believe from a security perspective, those were the foundations that led us to be able to offer support every time we have these mega international events. He, Commissioner Selebi, was instrumental to the World Summit on Sustainable Development, which was heralded as a major accomplishment for law enforcement in South Africa, and the security plan of which was adopted as a blueprint for future events by the United Nations. After successfully securing the Cricket World Cup the following year, South Africa was fellow mourners, on its way to hosting many other big events, chief amongst all being the biggest and most successful major sporting event, the 2010 FIFA World Cup. We thank Commissioner Selebi for the written blueprints that we continue to use even today. Of course, his election as the president of Interpol, another first in the continent, another first in the country, another first in our celebration of democracy in this country. We could feel a son of the soil to become a president of Interpol. And I guess this is why today we have Ronald Noble here joining us today to come and celebrate, take his flag-carrying hand that got to Interpol to show them that there is a beautiful country called South Africa that is seriously playing in the world stage. He threw himself into that role with vigor, and we're still proud of that. As the police, he represented us all. We all know, as we're sitting here, fellow manners, that his career in SABC did not end the way he wanted. We've heard the message that has been just read earlier on behalf of our past President Becky. But let me say to all of you, let us never let that detract us from the good that he had already done, from the foundation that he has laid. And I want to say to you boldly here, as the men and women in blue, indeed, those foundations are deep foundations, and they're the foundations that shall continue to help us carry this service forward. It is easy to stand back and criticize, but it is not easy to stand up and be counted. I want to say to all of you today, Selebi, to you and your sons and the family, fellow mourners here, all comrades, Jackie stood up to be counted. He did this on countless times, starting from being willing to sacrifice his very life in order to bring about democracy and freedom for his people in his beloved country. I had the list of what he was involved in, and I want to add something else. Because being part of the transformation processes in this country, in the welfare sector, we have the National Welfare Forum that was made up of various NGOs in the welfare sector. And when Jackie was in the welfare desk, the first foundations of South Africa's new welfare white paper, we worked with him on that one. And as the NGOs in the welfare sector, as comrades were coming back, we worked with him on that one. I also want to say to you, he had a passion for the rural areas, and he was concerned about how he's going to build more police stations in the rural areas. I happened to be working for Transnet at the time. We set up a portfolio called Underutilized Assets. The first container, customized, insulated police station in Gamasemula was under Jackie's leadership. Today, the Transnet program that we see, augmenting some of the facilities, that was under the leadership of Jackie Selebi. Let us remember Jacob Selebi fairly. Let us support his devoted and loving wife and sons. And I want to say to you, as he lies here today, I want to say to you, scars speak louder than the sword that cost them. And I want also to say to you, scars are the medals branded on the flesh, and our enemies would be fronted by them because they are proof of the long experience and battle of the wars and battles that he has fought. Robala ka khotsoto, and to you and the children. I want to say to you, what might have been pain for you as you reminisced through your life, as you reminisced about your husband and lover, would be sweet memories when you sit down and try and think of what he has contributed to all of us. Thank you for sharing Commissioner Selebi with us. Robalaka Khotso.
Thank you, Commissioner Biecha. I would like to invite the former Secretary General of Interpol and President of the Noble Foundation, Mr. Ronald Noble, who will also be speaking on behalf of Interpol. Mr. Noble.
Good morning. All protocol observed. I begin by extending the most sincere and heartfelt condolences of Interpol Secretary General, Mr. Jürgen Stock, to you, Selebi, to you and Jackie's sons, Clifford and Eldon, as well as to the entire Selebi family for your loss. Secretary General Stock authorized my official mission to Africa, South Africa, to participate in this funeral and to speak in behalf of Interpol. Because with Jackie Selebi's death should come both recognition of the significant contributions he made to Interpol between 2000 and 2008, and forgiveness for his crime for which he has already paid a heavy price. I was selected to represent Interpol today's service because as Interpol Secretary General, I worked closely with Jackie Selebi between 2000 and 2008, when he was South Africa's National Commissioner of Police, a delegate to Interpol General Assemblies, Interpol's Vice President for Africa, and Interpol's President. I will speak about the Jackie Selebi I knew, and I knew well. And I will celebrate with you this morning the accomplishments he brought to Interpol and the security he brought to the world. Firsthand, I witnessed Jackie Selebi's brilliance, his leadership, international experience, passion, and ability to build consensus and commitment to making the world safer for us all. I did this throughout 8 years working with him, but especially during my inaugural year, my first year as Interpol Secretary General following the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks in the U.S. That year, our annual meeting had been scheduled to begin 2 weeks later, on the 24th of September. There was debate throughout our membership as to whether it was too great a security risk to hold our General Assembly so close to those shocking and deadly terrorist attacks. Wouldn't we be such an ideal target? But two powerful voices stood out in favor of holding the meeting. John Abbott, the Director General of the UK National Criminal Intelligence Service, and Jackie Selebi, National Commissioner of Police for South Africa. I still remember to this day Jackie's words, "Brother, Interpol can never cower in the face of terrorism. We must convene leaders of police from around the world. We must discuss and debate how to best fight terrorism day and night until we're able to arrive at a unanimous resolution." On September 25, 2001, with Jackie Selebi's help and leadership, Interpol passed a unanimous resolution not only condemning those shocking and deadly terrorist attacks, but also laying the foundation for the Interpol of the future, the Interpol that we have today. Because of the leadership shown by him during the 2001 General Assembly, and because of the increased engagement of Interpol South Africa, Jackie Selebi was unanimously elected Interpol Vice President for Africa in 2002. The years 2002 to 2004 were among the most influential years in the organization's history. Interpol had the ambitious goal of connecting all member countries to the same secure global communication system, to make it easier to share information about fugitives, terrorists, and other serious criminals. Once again, Jackie Selebi's influence and leadership as Vice President for Africa were felt. He said, "My brother, please make sure that whatever secure police communication system you put in Africa is as good, if not better, than the system you put in the wealthier regions. Make sure all of Africa is connected. Make sure that the system works and it is maintained. And finally, make sure that it is free." I asked, "Is that all, my brother?" He smiled with that Jackie Selebi smile and said, "Yes, that's all for now." Interpol responded. The I-247 secure global communication system was invented. All of Africa was connected. Africa's system was state-of-the-art and satellite. It worked and it was for free. Jackie Selebi's engagement with and leadership inside Interpol continued. South Africa successfully hosted the 2003 Cricket World Cup, as was just said. But afterwards, it shared its policing experience with all of Interpol around the world. Together, Interpol, Jackie Selebi, Interpol's Executive Committee, confronted the 2003 Casablanca terrorist attack, the 2004 Madrid terrorist bombings. Our incident response teams responded to both in real time, ready to assist in any way that we could, with the full support of our President, Jackie Selebi. Jackie Selebi, as you just heard, the first president from Africa in Interpol's history. The enthusiasm that you could feel the day he was elected still resonates in my body. In his speech, he made clear one of his priorities. We need to ensure that areas such as the Caribbean and Africa become part and parcel of the organization, and we need to accrue benefits from their membership, he said. As president, I am ready to serve all members of the international police community in every area of crime fighting. This is the Jackie Selebi I remember. He was a man who never forgot his love for South Africa or for Africa, and the need for African countries to be fully engaged with Interpol. At the same time, he wished to serve all Interpol members, irrespective of the races, colors, religions, or wealth of their citizens. And I will turn now to my relationship with Jackie Selebi while he was Interpol President and I Interpol Secretary General. On each and every occasion, and there were many, when I or Interpol needed his help, or that of Interpol South Africa, or the South African Police Service, or the Southern African Regional Police Chiefs Cooperation Organization, our President, Jackie Selebi, found a way to help. With his support, Interpol deployed its largest incident response team to Southeast Asia following the 2004 tsunami. Interpol assisted Europe with its ongoing terrorist threats in the wake of the July 7, 2005 London terrorist attacks. And with the strong support of South Africa's police service, Interpol helped the Caribbean safeguard the 2007 Cricket World Cup. With Jackie's leadership, we built robust databases. We were available 24/7 in Africa and around the world, and we were there at your side in times of need and crises. Simply stated, South Africa's Jackie Selebi was known in the Interpol police community worldwide as a leader of police, committed to helping police and people anywhere to make their communities and the world safer. He also gave me guidance as a then young Secretary General. I had to confront international crisis after international crisis. I was never alone. There were times when he had to criticize me fiercely, even ferociously, and then afterwards embrace me with the love of a father or a brother. Only like Jackie Selebi could do. He held no grudges and would not allow member countries to use Interpol for their own political gains. I have seen no person better at building a consensus in an international forum than your Jackie Selebi, our Jackie Selebi. In all of my years working with Jackie Selebi, I found him to be a man filled with brilliance, passion, and integrity, dedicated to his country's citizens, both black and white, and to the citizens worldwide committed to making the world a safer place for us all, and willing to give every ounce of his energy to help those in need. For me personally, he was always there, always, a true inspiration. In scanning the internet for stories in South Africa covering Jackie Selebi's passing, to prepare myself for this morning's remarks, I was surprised as an outsider. To outsiders, South Africa represents the model of what countries that have committed wrongs against their citizens should do to make things right. They must put differences aside, come together, forgive, and look to the future. Let me quote from Nelson Mandela's address to a joint meeting and joint session of the U.S. Congress on 6 October 1994, almost 10 years to the day that Jackie Selebi was elected president of Interpol. I was there in person to witness and hear what he said. I quote, "At the end, the overwhelming majority, both black and white, decided to invest in peace. We are to one another brother and sister, a united rainbow nation that derives its strength from the bonding of its many races and colors, which constitutes a celebration of the oneness of the human race." End of quote. But what is most striking to South Africa and its legacy to many outsiders such as myself, and the National Commissioner just referred to this, it is the capacity of South Africans to forgive. In this regard, we have to look no further than to Nelson Mandela himself. Nelson Mandela forgave his oppressors. He invited one of his former jailers to a dinner marking the 20th anniversary of his release from prison. He invited his former prison guard to his inauguration ceremony as South Africa's president. He had lunch with a man who tried to have him executed. He donned the Springbok rugby jersey at the 1995 Rugby World Cup final, and he did so proudly. I met Nelson Mandela thanks to Jackie Selebi, and I could see how fond he was of Jackie Selebi during that meeting. With Nelson Mandela's healing influence in my mind, heart, and soul, I close my remarks thanking you, Jackie, for your contribution to Interpol, for making the world a safer place for us all. On a more personal note, I thank you for your support of me as Interpol Secretary General and your love of me as your brother. My dear Jackie, my dear brother, you are missed and you're loved by me and us all. I leave you and your family with a rosary that was blessed by the Pope so that you may find peace, lasting peace. I thank you. I love you. May God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Noble. And Gloria Mtungwa, who is Colonel Belinda Martins. Aremohu Jeki, you always live on. Your heartbeat is our heartbeat. Your spirit sings a song of peace. Jackie Selebi, the great warrior of our times. I would like to now introduce the Deputy Secretary General of the African National Congress, Comrade Jesse Duarte, to come to the podium with a song. And after that, I would like Sipho Mabuse to be ready to render an item.
Amandla, I'm trying to be a little bit subdued so that we show extreme respect for this solemn occasion, comrades. But firstly, let me say my sister Anne and the Selebi children, the Rhodes family and the Selebi family,
The NEC of the ANC extends its sincere condolences to all of you. Sister Anne, the few minutes I spent with you in the last week, understood very well that you had lost a husband, a father, and for you personally, a dear friend who made you laugh very often. We hope that as time goes, the pain will subside and that you will find family and friends who surround you with sincerity to take you forward as you go forward in life. We as the ANC, NEC, and I wish to just say this, many ANC cadre wish to be here today. As late as very late last night, we're still getting calls from people to request buses to come and attend Comrade Jackie's funeral. Yesterday I was with COSAS, who had launched their Learn Without Fear campaign, and the national leadership of COSAS was saying, you're being very unfair, this was our leader and we'd like to be at his funeral service. But I'm trying to explain to you that whatever is said publicly in the media about Comrade Jackie and has been said over the past months does not really penetrate the true heart of the ANC. The ANC wishes to thank Comrade Jackie for the manner in which he managed every challenge placed before him. We believe it was always with caution to do the right thing according to the policies and prescripts of the African National Congress. When he was a DG in Foreign Affairs, he did a great deal of work to unite people who came from very different backgrounds, people who would have called each other enemies a few short years before they began to work together. He taught us the value of what a mandate was and why, as a civil servant, the only mandate that mattered was the mandate contained in the policies. Your own views and creativity were second to what the mandate was. I always laughed when I think about protocol and sometimes how we get it wrong. Comrade Jackie used to say, protocol is never a laissez-faire decision. It is managed. It is precise. It is a science. That is how he operated. Some of the diplomats we met on the African continent would say that when Jackie Selebi got up and worked the room, you better be in the know because something was going to happen. Mema Ruth, Mashope, Frank Chikani, Comrade Khalima, Comrade Max Sisulu, and other senior veterans of the ANC. We've heard today inferences made to what is wrong with our organization at the moment. We've achieved many great things as a country. We have made many strides forward. We're a liberation movement with 1,400 paid-up members, represented in every ward in the country, 53 regions and 9 provinces. But one of the things we need to acknowledge here today is that anger with the ANC cannot force you to walk away from the movement and take your talent somewhere else, or put your talent in a bottom drawer to reveal it at some later date when your anger has subsided. Your talents are needed now. Your talents to help regenerate the ANC is needed now. We also wish to say today that we want to urge the NPA to be a little bit faster with the idea that they have put out in July last year to investigate the real truth around the matter concerning Comrade Jackie. The truth will set not only Comrade Jackie free, but the entire country free. And we urge you to move with haste and speed. It is also important, comrades, that we say this here. As Mandarins who come from the ANC background, there can be no room for competition to destroy each other, and for investigating each other and allowing real criminals to roam free. That, in my view and in the view of many of us, is a fault line. We see today, before you judge a cadre of the movement, first ask, where does this person come from? What is the background? And talk directly to the person concerned before you make hasty judgments about what you think they might have done wrong. As I was sitting and listening here today, I thought, if perhaps those who were doing the investigation had simply invited 20 or 30% of the people in this room and questioned them, they may have come to a very different conclusion. We also want to remind ourselves that Jackie Selebi, as a civil servant, produced in every place where he worked what we call today clean audits. So the notion that he was a corrupt cop cannot hold. Cannot hold. It cannot be right that those who write about him and pretend to know so much, and really it is invective, it is a narrative that is made up of opinion rather than fact, must be corrected. Have the courage to correct what you have said which is wrong. Do not fear that you will be misjudged. In fact, the country will only applaud you if you say, we too can make mistakes. We too are not infallible. Comrades, our tribute is to a man whom we can consciously, without fear of contradiction and without any measure of exaggeration, call an embodiment of the pillars of our heroic struggle against apartheid colonialism, anchored on the false notion of white supremacy. What we must also say is that the struggle for a nation and for nationhood in this country is at its infancy. During last week, we heard the angry voices of people shouting what I call slogans of hatred. Very callous, very cruel, very unthoughtful. At the same time, there were also voices who spoke for the ANC and others who were determined that we need to rise above that. That is the legacy of Oliver Reginald Tambo. That is the legacy of Nelson Mandela, of Thabo Mbeki, and many other leaders who precede us. That our project for nation building is young, but it is our responsibility as the African National Congress to teach those who thought they were vanquished and need to be angry about feeling vanquished, that there was no vanquished in this country. We are South Africans. How we came to this point where we are now is no longer important. Where we are going to as a nation is what matters. And we can only do so. We can only do so if we embrace a non-racial, non-sexist, united and democratic South Africa. For the ANC cadre here today, you must assist us. Yes, there are problems. A few weeks ago, the NEC of the ANC took an unprecedented decision not to allow its youth league to have a national elected conference. This was not done without thought. This was done after careful analysis, consultation, looking at the reality of what we saw. A youth league such as the one Jackie Selebi started creating even when he was in exile through Cycle is the one we would like to see in place now. Not a youth league that can be bought with fabulous money and cars and riches and wealth. No. So we do not apologize for making that decision. We ask every cadre to support that decision and ensure that we deliver such a youth league. In addition, comrades, what we must be very wary of is people who enter the organization as friends of the organization with a great deal of money but only to find that what they want is to own a municipality, to own the mayor, to own the municipal manager. We do not want that. We will not want that. We need your support. Even though you may be critical, we need you to support that project. As we move forward, my time I know is up. Comrade Ribbon is very strict. I would like to just read 2 extracts from a poem, and I'm sure you will all recognize the poet eventually as Maya Angelou, a woman that didn't waste words. Just like hope springs high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise up from the past that's rooted in pain. I'll rise, I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrous clear. Rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Rest in peace, Comrade Jackie. You are one of us. Your family will always remain with us and one of us. We thank you for your service to the ANC and to our nation. Amandla.
As Sipho Hotsticks comes forward to present an item, I want to acknowledge and thank those who've sent messages, the diplomatic corps, representatives from international organizations, friends, family. Unfortunately, because of time, we are not going to be able to read the messages. There are quite a number of messages that came with the wreaths also. We'll make sure that they reach the family. After Sipho's item, we will ask Elton, the son of Comrade Jackie, to come forward to present the obituary, after which we will ask Jackie's brother, Al-Hajj Morapedi Suleiman Selebi, to say a few words, and then I would like to hand over after that to Dr. TJ, Reverend Dr. TJ Ntlake to conduct the sermon.
Before Elton reads the obituary, at which time our choir will hum a nice song, I would like to call upon Loiso to come and read the message from Comrade Begin.Selebi.
Welile Nhlapo is a relative to Boy Party, a famous chap in Orlando East, and is trying to intimidate me. This is a tribute by House N to Jackie. Tribute to my loving husband, Jose. My beloved husband, best friend, brother and comrade. Where do I start summing up the years we spent together in a few words? You have left a huge void in my life. The road ahead without you is going to be difficult. My heart and soul are hurting, but I know you have always encouraged us to seek change and to accept the things we cannot change. However, this is one development that I will find difficult and hard to accept. There will never be comfort enough to fill the emptiness that we are leaving behind. The boys and I will forever cherish the affectionate memories we had together. You will eternally remain in our hearts. Most of all, we will miss your laughter, voice, jokes, and sense of humor. You had a very big heart, and your generosity and kindness knew no bounds. There were a few times when I thought I would lose my mind, but my God kept me sane. There were other times when I thought I couldn't carry on any longer, but the Lord kept me moving. And there were also other occasions when I wanted to lash out at those I felt had done us wrong, but the Lord dissuaded me and gave me inner peace and strength. We always entertained the hope that one day you'll come back home from hospital to bring laughter to our home, but God has His own plans for each and every one of us. The last few weeks have been tough on us when your condition worsened, but we never lost faith that you would bounce back. We were certain that you would summon your fighting spirit, as you have always done during difficult times, and recuperate, but it was not to be. Shortly before your admission to hospital, we undertook a week-long holiday at Sun City in the Northwest Province, during which time we had lots of fun and got to spend quality time together. Little did I know that our outing would be our final fun-filled moment together. You have fought the good fight and you have finished the race. Farewell, my husband. May your soul rest in eternal peace, my Jose.
May I invite Elton to come forward to read the obituary. May we all rise. Can I ask the choir to hum a song for us?
Jacob Silo Selebi, more affectionately known as Jackie, was born on the 7th of March 1950. He is the fifth of 7 children of the late Jacob and Moreletta Selebi. He was born in the old Orlando shelters, number 3 at house 3178. The family moved to Mofola village when he was 5 years old. He attended Ipatleleng Primary School well before he was of school-going age, and yet he managed to pass and did exceptionally well in his studies. Even at an early age, he demonstrated his intelligence and sense of independence and was not easily rattled or overwhelmed by circumstances or situations. It became very clear early on that when he set his mind to doing something, one could be assured the task could be completed beyond expectation. He matriculated from Orlando High School when he was involved in boxing, debating, among other activities. His debates were well known for having a political slant. After he matriculated, he attended the University of the North, better known as Interpol. His political interest and involvement grew and blossomed at Interpol, where he had the opportunity to act with many youth and student leaders at the time. He was involved in the formation of the South African student organization, SASO. Due to his involvement in politics, he was excluded from readmission after the 1972 strikes, which made it impossible for him to continue studies at Interpol. Upon returning home to Soweto, he managed to find employment as a history and geography teacher at a number of schools. Although he prepared his students well in order to pass history, he also intentionally and deliberately taught his students the history of the African people, which was not only excluded from the curriculum, but was forbidden. Upon getting wind of the fact that he was teaching his students non-authorized material, the school principal reported Selebi to the relevant authorities. He was subsequently fired. Many of his colleagues stood by him and refused to teach in protest of his dismissal. Many, if not all, of his colleagues were also fired. His involvement in politics grew even more after he lost his job as a teacher. He immersed himself deeply in the politics of BCM, which made him a person of interest to the apartheid authorities. He was subsequently arrested for his political involvement. During this time, he found a home in the ANC, working with Joe Kavi in the mobilization of the youth in the ANC underground and Mkonto Wesizwe. Upon his release, he went into exile via Lesotho in 1980. While in exile, he was deployed as a teacher at the Sir Solomon Mahlangu Freedom College, thereafter deployed at the World Federation of Democratic Youth in Budapest. He was later elected as the head of the ANC youth section, a role which saw him linking with youth structures inside the country. He was instrumental and led the process of integration of the ANC youth section and youth structures inside the country, leading to the relaunch of the ANC Youth League. He was co-opted into the NEC on the recommendation of the Youth Conference that elected him, open quotes, that the head of the youth be a member of the ANC, close quotes. He remained in the structure of the ANC until the unbanning of the movement. It was in this capacity that he was assigned the responsibility to organize the repatriation of all exiled members of the ANC back into the country. Upon successfully completing this task, he was appointed to serve as the head of the ANC Welfare Department. He became a member of the first Democratic Parliament. In 1995, he married Anne Rhodes, and in the same year, he was then deployed as South Africa's permanent representative to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva as Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary. He was promoted to be the first black Director General at the Department of Foreign Affairs, now DIRCO. His mandate was to lay the foundation for the transformation of the department, a task he fulfilled with excellent results. Ambassador Selebi was once again appointed as the first black National Commissioner of the South African Police Service. It was during his tenure as Commissioner that he was elected Vice President of Interpol Africa in 2002, which paved the way for his election as President at the Interpol Congress in Cancun, Mexico in 2004. Selebi was a son, father, brother, uncle, grandfather, and most of all, a husband. Always available when he was needed by his family, friends, relatives, and comrades. A disciplinarian and a force to be reckoned with. Loving, kind, jocular, witty, generous, and a motivator. He managed to leave a small part of him with everyone he encountered, a giant among his peers. He served his community, nation, and the world with dedication and commitment. A true selfless man, a father who dedicated his entire life for the betterment of others and taught with passion and vigor. A loving husband who loved unconditionally with an open heart. He was an inspiration to a countless number of people and represented hope to everybody whose life he touched. He was an inspiration to many. Everything he touched turned to gold. He was an administrator par excellence who built institutions. We will eternally miss him, but his love and humility will comfort us till we meet again in another life. Jackie now joins his departed siblings, Sydney Tapo, Philip Moabi, Paul Teboho, and Mabunte Ava. He is survived by his wife Anne, his two sons Elton and Clifford, granddaughter Lamise, his two brothers Murapedi Suleiman, George Letzi, and countless nephews and nieces. Robalaka Kotutlo.
Thank you, our choir. We're nearing the end of our program, and I would like to call upon Alhaj Morapedi Suleiman Selebi to come to the podium.
In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. We of the Selebis praise God Almighty Allah for having raised this jewel amongst us, this meteor that flashed across the sky should be raised amongst the Selebi families. Many people have said so many things about our brother Jackie. The print media and the electronic media. And we praise Allah because He gave us strength to be patient and not respond. Some journalists actually became authors overnight, and they wrote books about Jackie and never consulted this family. Invariably, these authors come from that section of people who benefited from this apartheid system. Now they can write about this freedom fighter and vilify him and say so many things about him. In fact, one of them is a sibling or a relative or a close relative of that mass murderer who used chemicals to destroy freedom fighters. He's a relative of that. He does not write about him. He writes about Jackie Selebi. We are a little bit amazed by that. You see, Jackie, we did not lose him on the 24th of January on Friday. We lost him many years ago when he left the family circle and joined the struggle in the late 60s. Jackie would just come to our home for a few minutes and go. There were times when we didn't know whether he's in South Africa or he's abroad. Okay, we lost Jackie and sacrificed him to the struggle. What happened on Friday was a culmination and the end of his life. He was born on a Friday, he died on a Friday. Those who know will tell you he is a lucky man. It shows that his Creator is happy with him for having been born on a Friday and he dies on a Friday. I want to say something about this so-called corruption, taking bribes. A bribe has got four main elements. You people of the media, there's a briber and the bribed and the bribe and the benefit to the briber. So there's a briber, this gentleman who gave evidence in court. I'm not going to mention his name, you know him. And the bribed is Jackie. And the bribe is some amount of money, some 100,000 in an envelope. But what was the benefit to this guy? The court never looked at that. The court never looked at that. They didn't say his benefit was X, Y, Z. So they just said there's a bribe and they found him guilty. We of the Selebis were a little bit bitter when the case started. The police that were guarding his house were removed. So Anne and a few of others were left vulnerable by the very same SAPS which he headed. Somebody gave order that the police must get away. Even when he went to court, he had no escort. Those who saw the TVs, we had as a family come around Jackie. He was very vulnerable. Anything could have happened there. That makes it bitter. You know, when Jackie returned from exile, we made a party for him at home, me and my boxing friends. And Jackie stood up to give a talk. He gave a talk about this animal called comrade. He said a comrade is something far above a brother or a father. A comrade will lay down his life for his comrade friend. He even narrated a story about them being pursued by the forces of evil. And they had to cross this river. And there was this huge crocodile. And they couldn't shoot the crocodile because the sound of the gun would alert the pursuers. Okay. So one of them, this is what he told me, had to busy himself drawing the attention of the crocodile to him while the other comrades crossed. And in that, the enemy arrived and they were now arresting this comrade. But the other comrades, because they are on that side of the river, they started firing and killing the Boers to save the comrade. This is what Jackie told us about this thing, comrade. But now it seems as time goes on, comrade turns against comrade. Comrade turned against comrade. And that is why Jackie now was arraigned in the courts of law. Okay. And there was this British spy whom the comrades used to trump up charges against Jackie. And I looked at myself, what kind of comrades are these? So we felt very bitter about that Jackie would not be afforded the security that he deserves during the trial. Or some people have already found him guilty before the conclusion of the trial. I am thankful to God Almighty that He can send so many people to this hall to commemorate the life of Jackie. Some of us did not know he was such a giant. But all we can say, we are thankful Jackie has lived his life. Somebody must take the baton and clean up the mess of comradeship. I thank you.
I would like to thank the program directors for the wonderful work they have done. But more especially, I want to thank them for allowing me to address this house as brothers and sisters. During this week, when I was busy preparing my message, I had a lot of things in my mind. But what helped me is the picture of Selebi that I have so clear in my mind. The picture that I saw of her at all times when she was accompanying the deceased to and from court. And the question that came to me was, what makes Selebi such a strong woman? And that helped me to look for the message that I thought will be relevant for this occasion. Some years ago, when they joined our congregation, Melodious One Uniting Reformed Church, at corner Bosman and Madiba Street, a multicultural, multilingual church right in the city center of Pretoria. We called all the new members forward so that we could welcome them in the congregation. And Selebi was sitting right at the back. He didn't come forward. And when I got home, I said, Khosi, but why didn't you come forward? He said, Muruti, I've been coming to this church. Why should you welcome me now? If you didn't want me, you should have stopped me long ago. And that was the joke he created. But there are so many interesting stories about him. I happen to be Jacob, and he's also Jacob. We heard from Ambassador Moloi that Selebi was a member of the Methodist in maroon and red, and he switched over to Orlando Pirates in black and white. And now this reminds me that he moved from the Methodist to the Uniting Reformed Church. He moved from maroon to black and white. And he happened to be a member of the Uniting Reformed Church, the first black commissioner of this country. And after him followed Commissioner Ria Pierre, who is also a member of the Uniting Reformed Church. So I'm not blowing my own horn, but we thank God for the gift that is given to this country from our church. And I decided to read from the book of Romans chapter 8, which helped me to portray the strength, the courage that Ocean had. Romans chapter 8, verse 31. What then shall we say in response to this? If God is for us, who can be against us? Yes. He who did not spare his own son but gave him up for us all, how will he not also along with him graciously give us all things? Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? It is God who justifies. Who is he that condemns? Christ Jesus who died. More than that, he who was raised to life is at the right hand of God and is also interceding for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble, or hardship, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or danger, or sword? It is written, for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. No, in all these things we are more than conquerors, through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any power, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Jesus Christ.